Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. This is the Darklight Emissary, and this video is just going to be a brief overview of what I hope for from Volume 3 of End in the Death coming out here at the end of this month. Now this novel is going to go on sale for pre-order this coming Saturday, the 13th. So if you are looking to get yourself a copy of it, and you want one of the special editions especially, make sure to check, because those special editions, I'm going to try to get one. It's going to be one of the only ones that I want to try to get, and the scalpers are going to descend on it like the Blood Ravens and steal it like holy chapter artifacts. We're going to have a slim chance of getting them before they get relisted on eBay for like $600. So I'm hoping to get myself one of those specials, but if not, I do have a hard copy already set to go anyways. But anyway, so I'm just going to briefly go over what I want to see in this novel. We already know a bit of what we're going to see just from, if you've read Volume 2 or listened to one of my reviews or other people's reviews. Basically, it's going to lead off right where we left off in Volume 2, with the Emperor on his way to face Horus, with a custode on his, one side, Loken on the other side, and that's where that was left off. And then we have Alanius and John Grammaticus currently leaving breadcrumbs for their past selves to find the future that they just fulfilled, because apparently that's needed. And then one of the main things that we are, of course, looking to see, a lot of people are looking to see, is the aftermath of Sanguinius' death and the effect of that on the Blood Angels Legion, and just the absolute Reaper's tally they are going to amass amongst the remaining traitors before the traitors retreat at the defeat of Horus by the hands of the Emperor. So those are going to be the main leftover siege stuff that we hope to see around the sides, and then of course the showdown with the Emperor himself and Horus. Just very recently, Dan Abnett did a interview about the end of this whole entire series, and he's talking about how we all know what happens, but not how it happens, and this is how it happens. And it's going to be interesting to see how Dan chooses to, show the fight between Horus and the Emperor. How much of it's going to be a discussion between minds, either before, during, or after the fight. I think it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. I know that some of you know this, but I'll just briefly go over again for those of you that are probably new seeing this channel. But I've been reading these since they started 18 years ago. So for me, this is a culmination of reading this series for the last 18 years. I didn't stumble upon this a couple of years ago. If you did and you powered through, more power to you. But I've been with this for the long haul for a very long time. I was 16 when Horus Rising came out, and I will soon be 34 in February. So, I've grown up in some ways with some of these characters. And so, the Warhammer novel series, a lot of people like to razz on them for not being the best writing and for being schlocky and silly and dumb at times. And, it is. It's ultimately fun, right? But, just like a lot of kids grew up with reading the Harry Potter books, kind of literally grew up getting older with those characters. Obviously, these characters are a bit older than all of us combined in a lot of cases, but still, in a similar way, I grew up, and it's interesting to watch how my perspective has shifted for some characters versus others. Yeah, from being a teenager to being, an adult. Kind of how I see Horus maybe differently from how I saw him back then, or even visualize him in my head, because there was a bit less art for him back then. There was some, older art, but there wasn't a lot of the newer art that we have for Horus to kind of inform his look, and there was nothing of Loken yet. So, there was a lot more imagining what these characters looked like, some classics like Saul Tarvitz. There was nothing yet. Rylanor, nothing. None of the characters really had too much artwork except some of the Primarchs. And even then, some of the Primarchs didn't really have artwork back in the day either. They just had, some wiki blurbs. They were in some rule book, stuff as some dressing, but there was not a ton of artwork back then. So it was a lot more of like this myth that slowly over time, over the last 18 years, has been brought to life with more and more art and more information on these characters, reaching us to this culmination of the final showdown here. So I am looking forward to it ending, and also not in some ways at the same time. It'll sort of be the end of an era for me in a weird way. Like nearly a 20-year chunk of my life dedicated to, getting the new releases each year and reading them for that long. And for myself, I didn't expect this to go this long. I don't think anyone did when they first read them back then. I completely by accident stumbled upon Horus Rising at a Barnes & Noble, just looking at what was new released, just wanting to, get another book, because I had gotten started in the books a year or two earlier with some of the classics like the Ultramarines Omnibus or the Eisenhorn trilogy. I had already dived into some of those. I was playing Dawn of War, Dark Crusade, the original Dawn of War stuff, and Dawn of War 2 hadn't even come out yet when I just realized when Horus Rising came out, that we were still a couple years away from Dawn of War 2 even coming out, which, man, that was a long time ago. And so, I find this book, it is talking about how, it's the Horus Heresy, which I'd read about, and I'm like, this is really going to have Primarchs in it. This is really going to be, this is it? This is that story? That's cool. Start reading it, I'm like, wow, this is the Primar Horus? This is Rogue Aldorn? This is Sanguinius? Especially Horus Rising had quite a few, of the Primarchs in it, just to, talking a little bit and everything, and it was kind of surprising just to, in that first book, to run into a few of them, and realize that this was, the beginning of something really cool for those of us that didn't want all of the distant past to remain an obscure mystery. And, I think some of it could stay a mystery because that's fun too, but definitely I have enjoyed the ride overall, I would say. I would say that most of the stories and the characters have been fun to see their evolution over the course of 18 years and many different writers taking their hand to steer the wheel for some of these characters' fates to all culminate in this final book, this final 3-volume book, really, that Dan is putting together for us. I don't envy him that role, because at the end of the day, he's going to face criticism no matter what he doesn't do by a segment of the audience. And so, while I'll definitely have my critique and review for it, at the end of the day, I respect it. It's been such a long time, and it's a lot to keep straight. A lot of characters to move around and remember what another writer did. It's a lot of stuff. So, even if you love it and can retain a lot of that knowledge, like I like to do, it's still so much. So I don't envy them having to do that, and I'm glad that they stuck with it for so many years, because in so many ways the series could have gone off the deep end and fallen apart. We don't get the privilege of seeing stories like this last this many years too often, in terms of science fiction and stuff. A lot of times funding runs out or interest fizzles, and we get a half-completed mess in some cases and some other universes and things, for those of you that are familiar with some of that stuff. And so the only other thing I'm going to put in here for now, because I don't want to make this video super long, but the other thing that I hope to see, that I've brought up a couple of times for the other volumes, is I hope that the first third of the book is going to be the Emperor's fight with Horus. Most of it be that. And then maybe sprinkled within that, some bits of the Blood Angels just in a complete rage, just obliterating traitor positions, just sweeping over them like a red tide of vengeance. You know, like Khorne's got his red tide of blood. Well, the Blood Angels are going to show you a red tide of complete and utter hatred for your very existence. I hope that's depicted well. I want to see that. And then I do hope that the next, 2/3, 3/4 of the book are the Emperor brought back to the Golden Throne. In the first third, by the end of the first third, he's brought back to the Golden Throne. And then we have the arrival of Robot Guilliman, Lionel Johnson, Lemon Roos, Corax, all of the remaining loyal Primarchs arrive with their armies, help push out and make run away the remaining traitor forces. And I want to see that discussion happen between the remaining Primarchs, because they are the remaining power that be on Terra. Malkador's dead, the Emperor's unavailable, the Custodes are not really a governing power, so they're going to relinquish power to, who the Emperor gave it to when he was on the throne at the end, which was Dorne, and Jagate Khan, Vulcan, is going to be there too. So we're going to have a council of these last remaining loyal sons, and I want to see what they are talking about. I want to see how they react to the aftermath of just the absolute savaging that the Imperial Palace has gone under. I want to see all of that, more so in some ways than the actual Emperor versus Horus fight itself being absorbing too much of the book. I want to see some revelations hinting about Pandemonium, the next Dan Abnett book, which is tied into these books in a way I wasn't expecting. It might help inform on who the Yellow King really is, if it's not Constantine Baldur, who that is. But that's the next book we can expect from Dan Abnett after this is Pandemonium, and I am looking to finish up the Beckwin trilogy of books. If you haven't read those, highly recommend those, because they are pivoting to be some of the more important, lore bridging moments between the past and the current modern era with Robot Guilliman. It's kind of right in between, basically, in some ways, in a sense. So, and it brings up stuff from the Horus Heresy to that point, and some of the things that I think are happening at the end of the Horus Heresy series, especially with Constantine Baldur, are going to matter for Pandemonium and for why Constantine Baldur is seemingly the Yellow King. So, anyway, recommend those as your next jump from this series if you have not somehow ran across the Beckwin trilogy of books. There are two of them right now, Pariah, I believe, and Penitent. I could be getting that first one wrong off the top of my head, but Penitent's definitely one of them. And then Pandemonium will be the third one coming out in the next year or two, I'm hoping. With Dan, having to focus on ending the Horus Heresy series, I imagine he's going to work to get that out next, because in a way, that series of books has ended up tying itself firmer to the Horus Heresy than anyone was expecting, despite it being a 40K era story with characters in that setting. And so far, no characters from Heresy era. Well, I take that back. And in Penitent, there was a couple of Drop Site Massacre era Marines around still, but no major names that we would be familiar with yet, unless a certain Alfarius is really Alfarius. Actually, oh my god. But anyway, I digress. So anyway, those are my thoughts. The next video is going to talk, I'm not going to do it here because, again, I'm going to keep this one short. The next video I'm going to send out is going to be what I want from the Scouring, because the Scouring is going to be after the Horus Heresy. There's no reason why they would not jump to that next for another long-term series of books to show how the Imperium changes over the next couple hundred years. Like all the flashpoints that turn it into the modern Imperium. Following up to the conclusion of stories for some of the missing Primarchs for the Loyalists. Like, I'm sure we're going to see up to the moment that, Dorn disappears, Jargatek Khan disappears, Russ. I'm thinking we're going to see some events leading up to all of them and stories in between. And the Scouring is going to be them chasing and fighting the, Chaos Forces all the way to the Eye of Terror. So I'm going to talk a bit about that in the next video. So these are some of my thoughts on some of the things I want to see from Volume 3 coming out in a couple weeks here. I'll have a review on this channel once I'm done reading it, as I have for the other two. And so, before finishing up here, I just want to thank all of you subscribing. We are past 3/4 of the way to 1,000 subscribers. So if you still have not subscribed, I would just invite you to. I'm going to keep this channel active. I would just invite you to help me get there. I'm not looking to make money off this channel per se. That's not the reason why I'm excited to get to 1,000. It's just a cool milestone. And I've never done it before with any other channels. So it would be cool to see just from a little bit of a milestone perspective. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter too much, but it will be fun to hit. So we are getting closer and closer to that. So any of you that have chosen to subscribe up to this point, I appreciate you. I do appreciate you just reviewing and spending time here, though. Even if you choose not to subscribe or even come back. Any amount of time spent here, I appreciate. I like to just have these discussions with all you fellow 40K fans out there, because a lot of us are scattered all over the world, and not all of us have someone to talk 40K with locally. For being a growing universe, a lot of us are still the only person in their local social circles that cares at all about 40K, and no one else really wants to talk with you about it. At least that's been my experience. I still run into people that have no idea what it is. So this, along with discussions online, are the way I like to, share in this hobby with each of you. So I hope you find my information and my thoughts valuable to you, and I do enjoy talking with you in the comments as well. So please leave a comment. Please leave a request for a type of video if you'd like to. I haven't really gotten any requests from you, but I do enjoy having a bit of discussion with some of you in the comments over the last few videos. So, and I appreciate any feedback you give me as well. And as always, hope you have a great day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one, and we'll talk with you soon. Bye.